So please welcome Mary Mac to the show. McMonagle. So funny. Here I am trying to pronounce your name. McMonagle to the
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
Welcome. Welcome, welcome, Mary.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I'm so happy to be here and to be in your energy again too.
I know we just I was on Mary's podcast last week, so we're meeting again and she's from New Jersey and it's like I looked at I've been going down your rabbit hole because I love doing that before.
Yes.
And I mean, I know you have a podcast, True Vibe, and you know the podcasting life, and that's fun when you're interviewing someone that understands a podcast. And I loved being interviewed by you last week because I'm not usually in, it's just so I'm usually the person that's asking the questions, right? And it's so different for me to be the person that answers. But I found myself, oh, I want to know more about you. Like I want to ask you questions. But I so after doing my Mary deep dive, I
Ooh.
realized because you're 30 years old, I could be your
Mhm.
mother, and I have a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old. And when I read the part about, I kind of wanted to start with when you were 16 and your mom took you to that Reiki lady and you were
Mhm.
like, this is a witch doctor. And what's my mom like healing me with this energy lady? But I do see, I've introduced my girls to everything,
Yes.
so what is interesting to me and where I was reflecting, because I love to reflect when I learn about somebody, like how it relates to me. But what it related to me was as a mother, especially how we believe. I believe in all the energy and the spiritual stuff. And they've done the breath work and they go to my
Oh.
retreats and, they learn automatic writing and the sound baths and
Mhm.
um, all the stuff, right? And I opened them up to that their whole childhood. But when I heard the story of you with your mom and how
Mm.
I feel like that shifted, that like awoke something that you were remembering from, I mean, I believe in past lives, like something
Yes.
emerged at that time. Can we go there and I kind of want to know about your childhood too, because I heard about your dad and when I was
Mhm.
listening to something, but let's go there.
I love that. Yeah. Well, I love that we're going there because I have so much respect for what you do, you incorporate that with your kids and what you do with moms also, because if it was not, and I have chills as I say this, if it was not for my mom, I would not be where I'm at today. I would not be in my life's purpose. I would not be impacting women and helping women. And so, yeah, I love starting there. Thank you. No one's
Yay.
really guided me to start there. So, what Ashley was referring to in one of my posts, I was sharing how I first got into energy healing and Reiki when I was 16. And my mom would go to this lady who was a Reiki healer. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. And I called her the witch doctor because I'm like, this lady is doing magic. And so the one day she asked me if I was in the waiting room and she said, do you want to hop on the table when your mom's done? I was like, yeah, sure. And immediately I feel the energy. I'm like, ooh, I got real cold and tingly. And she goes to me, oh, you have digestive issues. And I was like, yeah. And I'm 16 years old. And at the time I started developing a eating disorder that no one knew. And so I'm now in a little bit scared because she senses that I have digestive problems and I'm feeling this energy, but I was fascinated by it. And that's what really led me into what I do now, because that was a core piece that had stuck with me throughout my life. And that even if when at times when I felt very lost and I felt very disconnected from myself, I would go back to those practices that I learned at that early age and use that to recenter and connect with myself. So that is the quick version of really of how I got into that at an early age and how it's made me the woman that I am and has had this ripple effect out in the world as well.
Right. So now I want you to explain how your childhood, because you talk about
Yeah.
inner child
Mm.
work and you help people
Yes.
with that and wounds and trauma. And when I was listening to something you were talking about, um, your dad raised you,
Mm.
right? Like
Yeah.
give me the dynamics between your mom and your dad.
Yeah. So my parents divorced when I was really little. I was about 3 years old. And the only memory that I have was asking my dad, what's a divorce? And feeling really scared and not understanding what was going on. And so my parents, they were separated and we did back and forth. Although I was a daddy's girl, I'd be at my mom's house and I would cry, I want to go see dad. And so how I got into helping with clients with inner child healing and working on childhood trauma is we all have it. So trauma isn't measurable. It's just how long you allow it to affect your life. And so, especially with inner child, when we revisit our inner child, we're looking at, as an inner child, we just need as a child, we need to have our needs met. We need to feel safe. We need to feel loved. We need to feel we're taken care of. And at any moment in our childhood, if our body and our mind and our heart are signaling that our needs aren't being met, that creates trauma. And a small example could be, so actually a funny story. I was this one psychic lady was like, "Oh, you've been abandoned as a kid." And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
"Excuse me?" Yeah, and she's like, "Am I right?" And I was like, "Well, anyone could have an abandonment wound. You could be in the grocery store at 3 years old with your mom, and she might turn down the aisle, and you might not have noticed, and you could suddenly look around and not know where your mom is and go into panic as a child and feel abandoned. That is then creating a subconscious belief that impacts how you move through the world and the beliefs that you create. Now, for me, because my parents were divorced, I grew up thinking that, okay, I actually didn't know it wasn't normal until I was in high school. I just always thought, and because my parents were a block away from each other, because my dad was a guidance counselor and my mom divorced my dad, and my dad would have kids come to his office and cry that they never get to see their dad or their mom. So he didn't want that to happen. And somehow, by the glory of God, he found a house around the corner. So I just thought that was normal. Okay, mom's house is over here, dad's house is over there. I never felt like I was missing out on anything. And then when I got to high school, would go over friends' houses and see their parents interact. And I started to think, okay, that my parents are divorced, and that's actually not a normal thing. And then when I was in my early 20s, I got to see how it impacts me specifically, which is actually what I do and how I guide women, is how it impacts love, how it impacts who you allow into your life. I became very independent as a child because both my parents worked full time and I was the youngest of four. So they didn't have a lot of time or money to spare. So I started working from a very young age. I started caring for myself. As a kid, I knew that if I was going to get love and attention, it would be to help my dad. Let me help you, dad, when you're cleaning up. Let me help you with this. So these are all really bad patterns actually that I created.
Right?
Because when I got to my early 20s and I started diving into this work and realizing where did these patterns create, I realized, oh my God, in my early 20s, I had the beliefs that I'm not worthy of love unless I am giving, unless I'm providing support, unless I'm here, let me help you.
Mm.
And so it also impacted me because was, I am very independent, that I had the belief, oh, I don't need a man. It's hard for me to trust people. It's hard for me to let people in. And while I say this is where these beliefs impacted me, these are also qualities and characteristics I do love a lot about myself. I love that I'm so independent. I love that I'm very discerning of who I let into my space and around my energy. But this is now because I've gotten to do the healing work and identify these patterns of, okay, I do know I'm hyper independent. And so when I'm in relationships, let me lean back and allow myself to trust and not feel like I need to give and give and give and just actually receive love. So that is my childhood. That's where I've understood a lot of my beliefs and how I take that and now help women, which is through shifting into their feminine energy. But I guide them back to do a lot of inner child healing, a lot of healing around their abandonment wound, which again, the abandonment wound, childhood trauma is just at any point, because from 0 to 7 years old, your subconscious is wide open.
Right.
So I guide clients back to through their subconscious to pull out and unlock where these beliefs were first created.
So when you realized your wounds from your trying to please your dad and
Yeah.
give and all that. So you realize that from doing your inner child work.
Yes.
Where are you shifting it now? Are you just making up new
Mm.
beliefs? Are you trying, like, I'm sure you
Ooh.
were attracting boyfriends
Oh
like
my
that.
gosh. Yeah. So I used to attract a lot of emotionally unavailable men because one of the things when you work with me, we're going to explore the characteristics of your dad. And a lot of my clients don't like this at first, but they trust me enough to then see how expansive it can be for them. So we're going to look at the characteristics of your dad. What did you like about your dad? And that can be very triggering for some people because a lot of women have we hear the term daddy issues. A lot of women have some sort of feelings, or if not, you're like, oh, Mary, my childhood was great though, but it still impacted you. So we're going to look at the characteristics of what did you like and appreciate and value about your father, and then what would you change? And so now this is the part that a lot of women where I check their egos is I have my holding up the mirror technique. So we're going to hold up the mirror. And what do I mean? The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. We
Right.
take on these characteristics. So my dad, I would change. He was very emotionally unavailable. And given I understand the circumstances, right? Single dad with 4 kids, working full time. He was doing the best he was doing the best he could with what he had given his circumstances. So I learned that because my dad was emotionally unavailable, I then and what I see with clients is we either seek that out in men, which I call that the fixer. We are attracting men who have modeled the behaviors of our dad. So my dad was emotionally unavailable. So I'm like, here, let me attract this emotionally unavailable man. Subconsciously, I'm thinking if I fix this man to be emotionally available, to love me, to care for me, then I'll be good enough. And it's
Mm.
validating something. Or what I see with women is we rebel. So we go for the men who are what I call completely in their feminine energy. They're weak, they're soft, they're not taking action, they're not in that protector, divine, masculine leader energy. Because we energetically were rebelling because we maybe are a little bit too traumatized by what we saw growing up. So, to answer your question, Ashley, I would attract a lot of emotionally unavailable men. And that was mirroring to me because
Right.
I was so emotionally unavailable.
But that's what I love about, I mean, anything in life is a mirror. I always say that.
Yes.
I say that to the girls all the time. Like, if something is in them and it triggers you, it's in you. Everything is a reflection. Whatever
Yes.
going on inside is a reflection of your life going on, right? Like, everything in your world is a reflection of what's going on inside of you. So when I now, as a mom, and I'm listening to you, and I'm picturing Paige just kind of started liking this boy. It's, 17 years old, and I'm watching what the characteristics that she is pointing out that are very
Mm.
positive, right? And I'm looking at, since I've been with you in my mind the last couple days, I'm thinking, okay, as a mom, she's going to have everyone has inner child work to do when they get older from their
Yes.
childhood, right? So it's like, shoot, you mean I didn't do it perfect, Mary?
Yeah, and that's like, my heart pours out to you, to all the moms listening, to my mom, to my parents, because I have so much love and respect for parents. I'm hopefully will one day be enough to be a mom, but it's not to say that it's your fault because I actually just helped a client work through a subconscious belief that if she receives money, it'll be taken away. And what was coming through from her subconscious mind was the time she was a little kid, she had a really nice toy, and someone she was playing with came and grabbed it from her. So
Hmm.
as a child, she then created a belief: if I have nice things, I will get robbed. People will take it from me. So for all the moms listening, I see you. I love you. Please be easy with this conversation because we can definitely go into, oh my God, fix it mode. But, if that's bringing up something in you, really just how can you shift into the vibration of feeling proud and secure with yourself that you did the best of what you could do given the
Right.
circumstances?
Totally. What was with your mom? How was that relationship?
Yeah. So so my family dynamics have been very, very rocky. And it actually started from I went to school for speech pathology and didn't get into grad school right away. So I had a year off. And in that year, I got to know myself. I traveled, I was doing a lot of yoga. And I came to my parents and I said, I think I want to become a yoga teacher. And, my parents wanting the best for me said, no, you need to go to grad school, you work, then you get to go do that. And that just didn't sit right in my body. So I got into grad school and I kept hearing this voice: go become a yoga teacher. There were so many synchronicities lining up. And the one day I went for a hike and I meditated and I heard my favorite quote. And my favorite quote is, do not follow where the path may lead, but go instead where there's no path and
Mm.
leave a trail. And I saw what my life would look like in both if I continued on the path that I was at, predictable. Graduate, get a good paying job, good paying salary, but I felt like I was very lonely. I was very sad and hollow inside. And then the other path was go chase this dream, go become a yoga teacher. And I felt it and it lit me up and my soul was open, but it was the unknown. And so I dropped out of grad school that day and I went to Las Vegas to become a yoga teacher. And that really shook up my parents. And we've done a lot of healing and a lot of trauma, a lot of like working through their own trauma, which it brought up, which I understood. It took me years later. Came to my mom and I said, Mom, please forgive me for the the naive the way that I went about it was very naive. I would have communicated better. I would have said, hey, this is what I want. I'm still going to do it. So I can totally understand the feelings that it brought up. But from there it'd been uphill battle where uh back in the summer of 2021, I stopped talking to my mom for 4 months because I was feeling like she was very resentful of me and my mom would make comments, oh, your life is so easy, oh, Mary, she told me what I was doing was a fraud and that I
Huh.
actually don't help people. So I cut her out. I stopped talking to my mom.
Hmm.
And then my dad got sick and was put on hospice. And I said, okay, I'm going to be seeing my mom a lot, let's hash things out, which was really beautiful for me because I know my patterns. I'm an avoidant attachment. So meaning I avoid tough conversations. I avoid really expressing how I truly feel. So we got to have that conversation. And then slowly over the course of 2 years, we've rebuilt this beautiful love that I've always had for my mom. I've always admired her. She's very curious, very loving, very giving. And so a couple weeks ago, we just celebrated her 65th birthday. She came to visit me. I took her out to, we went shopping and then we went out to dinner. And I just kept telling my mom, please receive, receive, receive. Cause she,
Oh.
yeah, she's a giver. And so it's been a wild, wild journey, but I'm really big when you have so much love and you have a lot of love to give. It's can be easy to walk away, but sometimes it's harder and challenging to speak up for how you're
Right.
feeling. I'm not saying stay because there might be someone listening to this who's in a toxic relationship and I don't want to validate that, but a lot of times it can be hard to speak up for how you're feeling. And so yeah, it's been a
Hmm.
wild, wild journey.
I never thought of it in my life after just now listening to you. I didn't have my parents were like, do whatever you want, go there. You want
Mm.
to move there? Sure, go. You want to do this job? I didn't have,
Wow.
I just kept going, but I kind of wish I had that. And it's like you
Mhm.
always wish you had a little bit of more like this
Yeah.
structure, but I didn't, I just
Structure.
was kind of free, right? And then I'm thinking about, I was listening to you talk about your dad, and he was a narcissist.
Mm.
And so I want to talk about that because
Yeah.
I had a really interesting experience with Paige, my oldest. There was this boy, and I started seeing, there was something in me too that in my your age time, early age, I was attracting that. So
Mm.
I'm very sensitive and I know
Mhm.
what to look for. So I'm
Yes.
watching Paige with this
Mm.
boy, and I said, Paige, it's not a good thing. And
Mm.
she's doesn't understand, and we're talking
Yeah.
about it. And I said, you need to read this book before you see him again. So I give her
Ooh.
this Audible book, and it's about empaths and narcissists. And
Yeah.
so she's at her practice running and she's listening. And I look at my Audible account. I'm like, wow, she really wants to see him. She's 6 hours in. Like when she's like deep, dedicated to this book, because she knew I said, you're going to have to read this book. So
Mm.
she finished it, and been the best lesson. She's, doesn't talk to him anymore. But now, like, I'm thinking, what a gift for her
Yes.
to see that at 17 years old. And now
Yeah.
she has the radar and she knows. And that's probably why this other boy has nothing. I think it's like, wow, Paige, the bar has risen. Like now
Yes.
you have seen what is not going to work. And then now it's just, but it's like shaped her. So all of our experiences in life are all perfect, and exactly, we know they're all for us, right? Because it's
Yes.
getting us to where we're meant to be. But explain to me how you got through that with your dad like that, how you
Mm.
explain a narcissist.
Yeah. So a narcissist will the term breadcrumbs. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or anyone
Oh,
listening.
that's all I talk about, by the way.
Okay,
People
I
are going to
love it.
laugh. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
love it. Okay,
Everyone's
perfect.
laughing right now. Oh, Ashley and her breadcrumbs.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So it's so in alignment. Yeah, the breadcrumbs, the narcissist is gonna try to grab your attention. They're gonna do this. I love evolutionary psychology. So they're gonna do this like flashy dance, thinking of like a bird, try to catch your attention. And you're like, ooh, wow, like, look, this guy has all this to offer me. Yeah, this sounds great. So he gets you and he's going to make you feel really good. He's going to want to say, "Oh, babe, I got this. Let me provide for you." He's going to find that in the narcissist is going to find that in of where he can really hook you in. So once he hooks you in, then you are then, and when you're with a narcissist, I'm just going to call it how it is. It's an insecurity problem. We're feeling insecure because it's like, well, if I leave this person, then who's going to love me? And so when I think of my dad, I just wanted love from my dad. I wanted my dad to see who I was, but my dad would always judge who I was. And so another thing with narcissists, if you express how you're feeling, the narcissist fuels on feelings. They're going to take your feelings as energy and they're going to take and take and take and use it against you. So it can be very challenging because as women, we by nature need to express how we're feeling. And someone listening to us might have heard before, oh, you're being too much or you're too emotional. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. And I think for part of my healing, I had to normalize my wants, my needs, my emotions are valid because when you are with someone and you are trying to receive their love, receive their attention, to validate that insecurity. So for me, my insecurity was I didn't love who I was from the inside. I was seeking that love and validation from my dad. So then that over time, how
Mhm.
that plays out in relationships is I then seek that love and that validation and acceptance from men, but that never works out because then you attract the men who will judge you, who are emotionally unavailable. So a big thing with the narcissist is to one, recognize your self-worth, is to recognize with or without this person, I will be okay. And if you can't believe that, then take some time to really sit and understand why. Because my dad's passed now, and I've had to do a lot of healing. And I have grief is a wild journey. So even though my dad isn't here, and when I have the good memories come up, I really have to tap into that energy. Well, how did that make me feel? And then give that to myself. So it's a very challenging journey. Um, but hopefully that kind of answers
Yeah.
around the
I just think
narcissist.
that's an interesting, because I don't know, I've been around it, I've seen it, and to experience it as a mom, watching your daughter go through it, um, make really made me realize like, wow, what a gift. Thank you to that boy who came and did that because it was
Mhm.
really amazing that she realized everything.
Yes. And that's
Yeah,
such a beautiful lesson because it's like that was meant on her journey, right? It's we will attract things to teach us lessons. And the fact that you are such a supportive mom and and especially for other moms listening, like how can you create that safe space to have with your daughter? I didn't have that with my parents. I would never go to them about how I'm feeling about a boy, never,
right.
because I didn't have that. But you actually have created such a beautiful relationship with your children. And, for someone listening who is a mom, how can you create that beautiful, safe relationship where you're not going to judge or you're not going to uh completely go into fix it mode where you offered, hey, read this book if you want to see him again, which is so beautiful because it allowed her to be guided and she followed through on that and then learned that lesson.
Right. It's been another thing that Wayne Dyer quote, like your children aren't yours, they come through you and they're on their own journey, I don't, that
Yeah.
wasn't the quote, but basically,
Mm.
and that was like, she's not mine to like, hold and be with, and then I have to let her go and she's on her journey. But as they get older and I see them experiencing and listening to your story with your family and how you discover like your gifts through, I mean, just to even take the stance of like, I am going to go to do yoga. I am
Yeah.
going to move to Las Vegas. Like gave me tears. I'm so I'm like, gosh, I'm so proud of you for,
Thank you.
for really, really listening to your intuition and like taking that step and picking up the breadcrumbs, right? Who knows? Like
Yeah.
I always would say that to the girls, like just go, if that's calling you, go. There's if it's not the
Mm.
right one and you had to turn left and you should have gone right, there's no should have. You'll get
Mm.
back. It's just the lessons
Yes.
will be, you learn some lessons. But okay, so let's go into feminine and masculine energy because you
Yes.
really work with women
Mm.
with that because oh gosh, Mary, I didn't get married till I was 35.
Mm.
And I had a day spa for 5 years before that. Very independent, bought houses, just had I was the man. I
Yeah.
was the masculine energy 100%. It was very hard for me to be feminine.
Mhm.
And And I realized that once have been learning, and I remember being at Tony Robbins' event, Date with
Mm.
Destiny, and we had
Ooh.
to be in our feminine. And it was like this whole thing about relationships. And he wanted you to dance, like sexy. And I
Ooh.
was with my sister and I was looking at her going, oh my gosh, there is no way I can do this. I just realized like it's a really, like for me to move in from a masculine, like for, 35 years of my life
Yeah.
and then have to figure out how to switch it when I met Richard
Mm,
to have a family, be a mom, stay at
mm,
home with them, figure out how to cultivate that, and having 2 girls, wanting to be that feminine for them, be that role model that shows them that this is the masculine. We have both, but to
yeah.
understand how to have that, the balance between the 2. Will you go
Mm,
into that and how you help people with that? And how you can
yeah.
help me with that? Okay.
Absolutely. So for someone listening who maybe is familiar with the concept, maybe not, masculine energy and feminine energy, we all have both. The masculine energy is the doing. The masculine energy is the logic in our mind. The masculine energy is the taking action. Where our feminine energy, that is when we are being. We are in our bodies. Women, our bodies, if you look at the human body, we're designed to receive. We're designed to create. We're designed to create life force. So we are very powerful beings, and that is very powerful energy. So all humans have masculine and feminine energy. And so I work specifically with women who they have made, they're successful in their business. They're very independent. They know what they want. They're the go-getter. So I work with them to look at their relationships, who maybe are struggling to communicate their wants and their needs, or they're struggling to really have that deep connection with the masculine. Because as women, when we are in, if you are a high performer, you have a lot of responsibilities, right? Being a mom has a lot of responsibilities. There's a lot of things that need to get done. So we're in that constant go, 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 do mode. And how to turn on your feminine energy is really looking at it from understanding your self-worth and what you bring and who you are, because you are allowing yourself to walk into a room and you're walking as if you own that room, as if you are Beyonce who just walked into the room. You are standing up tall, shoulders back, moving slow, great eye contact, and you are this magnetic force where things just come into your life. And so, how it plays out in relationships is because a lot of us independent women, we can do it all. Even an example of this, I this past weekend I had a date, and I
You
I
did?
I
Oh, fun.
did, yeah. And I have my coaching calls on Sundays. And so I just got finished my coaching calls, which I'm very in my masculine energy because I'm leading. I'm leading these women who are alpha women. And I'm like, I'm overpowering your alpha. So I have to be in my masculine energy for that. But then I had this date, and and I'm still like in that energy. I'm like, Mary, I hear my voice in my head. What I tell my clients, soften. So I wanted to be asking him questions, getting to know him. I'm like, no, let him lead. You need to let that man lead. So I'm just being slow, letting him ask questions. And then he walked me back to my apartment building, and I have to put my bike in the basement. And I could have done it on my own. And I turned to him, I said, oh, would you mind helping me bring my bike down to the basement? He's like, absolutely. So that's the beautiful thing, because a lot of women are scared to shift in their feminine energy because they don't want to lose control. I would argue that we actually have more control when we're in our feminine, because I'm like, hey, can you help me do this? And the masculine, a man in his masculine energy loves to be able to help, to lead. So in relationships, if you're listening to this and you're in a relationship, how can you let your man lead a little bit more? A lot of women, who I do work with, singles and people and women in relationships. Oftentimes I see the women who are in relationships who come to me, they are in what I call mother mode. They're mothering their men. And men do not want to be mothered. Men just want to be respected. And if you are mothering them, they don't feel respected. And it just is going to ripple into, they're going to actually resent you and lose attraction for you. Um, so yeah, it's overall to sum this up is to be in your feminine energy is to allow others to lead, to trust yourself, but to also trust and to trust others, to trust yourself enough that you can discern, to trust
Mhm.
others, and to really all know that you are moving with this Beyonce energy.
I was listening to you talk about you sometimes are in your apartment and you walk like you're on the runway.
Yes. Oh, it's my favorite thing. So I put on a whole runway show in my apartment and it's
I
just
love
me and
it.
my dog. I will sometimes I'll get dressed up. And that's like inner child too, which is so fun because that's really healing. I will put on music. I will literally walk as if I'm walking down the runway. And because those are also tips and ways too, Ashley, where you can really start to boost your confidence. One of my tips that I'll share with this is a really, really powerful tip. Um, and I have to add some guidance with it. So this tip, one, you have to be firm in your boundaries because this will make you a magnetic and people will come up to you. So if you aren't strong in your boundaries, work on boundaries first. And two, you need to be connected with your intuition with this. But because you also need to be able to discern when people are coming up to you. So when I'm out and about in public, if I lock eyes with anyone, doesn't matter if it's a man, a woman, I don't look away until they look away.
Hmm.
And this is really powerful as a woman because you are standing in your power. You're not intimidated by anyone. You're not shying away. And also, it helps you get over the fear of what people think about you.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I do that. I love doing that. It's like a game to me. I love doing the going to the
Yes.
grocery store and like seeing how many people I can. And it's interesting because a lot of people get scared when when you get a eye contact. They look
They
away, and I'm
do.
just like, okay. And then I mean, I've always taught my girls to give compliments, and I'll whenever we're
Yes.
out, just to like engage and try to have that power and confidence because it gives them confidence to give compliments. And, now watching them in as a teenager, it's like it's nonstop. We're at the grocery, somewhere, Target. Yeah, "Oh, I love your earrings. I love your
Oh,
fingernail polish. I love." But
oh,
that's like teaching kids that too is, important to me because it's making them look outward and, looking at other people and giving, like being the person that's giving, not just taking, and having
yes.
your blinders on and not seeing the beauty, right?
Yeah, because also what I hear in that, Ashley, is being present. And when you are in your feminine energy, you are fully present. You are out of your head. You are into your body. So there could be a million things going on. You could be sitting outside enjoying nature, and there could be a million things going on, and you are not phased by it because you're just so tapped into what is happening for you in that moment. You're not concerned about maybe there's a person next to you being loud or whatever is going on around you. You are the star of your own movie. You are in your own world.
Let's talk about intuition. You were
Yes.
mentioning that with like feminine and masculine.
Mhm.
Is there a difference between when you were talking about that, the difference between the intuition?
Yeah. That's a really good question. Yeah. So that when you are connected with your intuition, you are in your feminine because again, the masculine is the logic. The masculine is sets a goal and says, okay, what's the structure to get there? The feminine, she has a goal and maybe that masculine energy is there, that structure to do it, but you keep hearing this voice or you keep getting this nudge, right? Like I kept getting that nudge, go be a yoga teacher, go be a yoga teacher. You have this voice, this
Mhm.
feeling, this soul calling that just keeps getting louder and louder. That's your intuition because maybe the masculine energy says, well, that doesn't make sense. You need to do this to make it make sense. But the feminine is like, I'm going to go do this. Right. Like I know your story, you felt called to create a podcast and you just leaned into that. You didn't know where it was going to take you. That is that feminine energy. That's allowing your intuition to unfold.
Yeah, I love that. I love, lately, like connecting. I've been really like, I do a lot of automatic writing
Mm,
and I really try to connect to that. And it's gotten to be really, really, um, uh extreme like I don't know, like really deep, and where it's
yeah.
like really I can understand like it's the practice and doing it daily and seeing how it comes through and being trusting and knowing that, and not the doubt, not doubting, and just letting it flow. But the more I do that, I've always been intuitive and I understand that. um but when you start to really connect and you understand that communication between your higher
Mm,
self and that whole that direct line, it
yes.
is like it's like your compass, and
Yes.
I feel like when you're like just for the yoga thing, going back to that, like it was like it can't, it's like a magnet, it's
Yes.
like I can't not do that.
Yes. And there have been many times where I've ignored my intuition and big and small. So a small one recently, last week, I was putting clothes in my washer and I heard a voice say, "That's too much. Don't put all that in there." I'm like, no, I need to get this done now. And this is the second time I've done this. So I've learned this lesson now. It
And
broke. So, and I'm like, oh, I should have listened, Mary. Didn't we learn this the first time? No. But that's a big piece too, is not beating yourself up when it's just to recognize, okay, I do have my intuition. But I think a lot of people, if you're trying to connect more with your intuition, we self sabotage rather than trusting. Because if we trust, if in that moment, then then there's no proof that we would have been right. So when we self sabotage, up, see, Mary, you should have listened to your intuition. That's actually then creating proof and validation, but it's so much more powerful when you can just lean into that. Uh, pivotal moment in my life, actually, I don't know how many years ago, a lot of years now. I was working two full-time jobs and was doing my business on the side. And I was so burnt out and I was in a summer basketball league at the Jersey Shore and I wanted to go to my game and I just had no energy. My intuition said, don't go. And I ignored it. And what happened? I got a really bad concussion that I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't work for months, which actually completely changed my life and helped align me where I am. So everything is serving you for your highest purpose. But yeah, it's allowing yourself to really trust the first time around. It doesn't have to make sense because it's serving a purpose no matter what.
right, oh, for sure, it's trusting and surrendering and just going and flowing with it life, and just knowing that you're being led, and you just
Yes.
know you're being led.
Yes. And that's very feminine energy, right? Because you're listening to your intuition, which is actually leading you. So the more, and which is so beautiful because then you can surrender into and soften into being led and unlocking that feminine energy.
Right. Let's go back to the Reiki healing, because I know that
Yeah.
you teach people how to Reiki, all the stuff. And when I
Yeah.
had my day spa when I was your age, so I'm 55 now. So when I had my day spa and I was 30, I would do Reiki. We would have Reiki, we would have Qigong, we would have
Um,
yoga, but it wasn't, we'd have breath work. And
wow.
all these people were coming in, and it was so interesting because it's now like the normal. Back then it was, what is it?
Yeah.
Kind
What are
of
you
like
doing?
with you and when you were 16, what am I doing, mom?
Yes.
Why do you incorporate that? Just because it made you understand the power in it?
Ooh, why do I incorporate it? Yeah. So, well, actually, right now, so it's funny. I've kind of stepped away. I still teach a little bit Reiki here and there, just when I have like some coaching programs that will invite me in to teach a class, but I incorporate it with my coaching clients and my coaching programs. And so, why I do it is because Reiki is based off of a system where we have energy centers in our body, and each energy center is aligned with something. So, for example, our root chakra, which is our hips down to our feet, that is our energy center for feeling safe, for feeling secure, for feeling it's it's our energy center also for abundance and money. So I love incorporating Reiki and energy work with my clients, because if we're working on a a wound around not not feeling like they can trust men, I'm going to look at the third eye chakra, and I'm also going to look at the root chakra, because that is an energy center that is storing energy that needs to be cleared within our body. So um energy work is very powerful to help you really connect to the root of your problems.
And you do it on Zoom. You can do it over.
Yes, yeah. So, because energy is basically, if you look at energy, it's can't be destroyed or created, right? Albert Einstein, the man. Energy
Right.
cannot be created or destroyed. So what does that mean? That means all of us humans, we are operating from a vibrational frequency. So, an example of this is your thought. We have four bodies. We have our mental body, which is our thoughts, our emotional body, which is our feelings. We have our physical body, and then our spiritual body, which is our overall connection to, you mentioned, higher self, angels, God, universe, whatever. And so, because we are frequency, our thoughts, you might be thinking of a friend, and that is sending off a vibrational frequency. And that friend happens to call you. Oh my God. You're like, I was just thinking about you. So, how this works in energy healing is I'm going to connect intentionally to Ashley's energy. I'm going to intentionally draw it in. And so I get into a very calm, neutral state. And I am then channeling energy I call in Reiki guides and ancestors, allow me to channel Ashley's energy and help guide and heal her for highest good. So I'm calling in your energy, and then I'm able to then sense where in your body I'm feeling any sort of blockages. So because energy cannot be created or destroyed, and we are all energetic sources of being, it's about tapping into that vibrational frequency.
Right. Uh, were you raised like that, or were you raised like with religion?
So I
Because
love
like you're 30, like it's just so fascinating to meet these young girls. You're just like an older soul.
I'm an
I think,
old soul. Yeah. So I was raised super, super Catholic. And so when I got into Reiki, and actually my whole family turned against me, and even like not so much with my mom. My mom was actually still kind of like teeter-tottering, was like curious. But I had aunts calling me, oh, you're doing the devil's work. I had people, my whole family was getting ready to try to like, in the like burn me in a sense, right? Like, oh, that's a witch, let's get her. So yeah, I was raised very, very Catholic. But I just, from the time I was a kid, I knew I was special from the time I was a kid. And if you're listening to this, maybe we'll start to welcome back in those feelings you felt as the time you were a kid, that you were meant to help people. You were meant for a big purpose. I knew I was special. And to me, now I understand that of feeling special was, I really am able to, part of my purpose is to shift how people see and believe in themselves. So a lot of my family they have now shifted, and because I know I didn't back down, I stayed strong in my truth. This is my truth. You can tell me I'm doing the devil's work, but now that they see I haven't backed down, and how much over time how many people I've helped, and just even my dad, I lived when I was taking care of him, I lived in a small town, and people would tell him, "Oh my God, your daughter, she's helped me with this." And yeah, but to answer your question, I was raised very Catholic, and they don't well, my family didn't approve of
right.
yeah.
So funny. What advice would you give that little girl
Oh.
back in the day?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. What advice would I give her? I But just go back and tell her that believing in herself is going to be a superpower, not only for herself, but the more that she believes in herself, the more that she'll help others.
I love it because it's like you just got to believe.
Yes.
It's like you just got to believe. And when you believe, there's no all the stress is off. You're just I'm going to believe. I'm going to believe.
Yes.
I'm going to believe. What like when you see your future, like what do you set goals? Do you
I do.
visualize? How do you manifest like when you're sitting down, do you like meditate and visualize and what's that? How does that go? Well, we're almost
Yeah.
done here. We'll
So
end it up.
for me, I'm a very organized person. So I believe you have to know what you want. And if you're not like, I don't know what I want, start to understand what's important for you. What are your values? How I manifest is I get very clear on 5 areas in my life. How do I want my lifestyle to look? Write out my goals. And how do I want my wealth to look like? How do I want um my relationships to look like? How do I want my business to look like? And then how do I want my connection to God, source, universe to look like? And so from there, I write them all down and then I reverse engineer the process, which is I get clear on what am I doing? Who am I being? What vibrational frequency am I being? And I realized because I actually just did this. I do my goals quarterly, so I just updated
Oh,
my quarterly goals. I am I'm like Mary. I need to get up earlier. I've been sleeping in, and the woman who hits this amount in her business but also has her 2 hour morning routine, she has to get up if this is going to complete it. So, and then as far as goals that seem really, really far out of reach, like I'm looking at my vision board right now. I have on there to be a best-selling author, hosting retreats. They're in the back of my mind. They're not like I'm not focused on them necessarily, but after I get off this podcast, I do this for anytime I get off a podcast or I do a podcast because I have 100,000 downloads I'm manifesting for my podcast. So I'll get off and I'll just imagine, yep, I'm someone who I just had 100,000 downloads and I'm just in this podcast energy. So yeah, part of it, it's like that masculine, get clear on what you want. And then the feminine, for me, visualization really helps, but also just bringing in that energy and acting as, yeah, I'm the version of Mary who has 100,000 downloads on her podcast. How is she being? She's confident, she's clear, she feels very secure in what she's sharing and how she's speaking.
yeah, I love it. It's so fun to talk to you, and I know we're ending, but just watching you talk and think and using, seeing what comes through and being on the other side the other day was fun too, seeing how you interview. But I get so excited when I meet people your age and where you're going to go and what you've done so far in
Oh,
your life and really listen to your heart and taking being brave, having the courage to really stand up for who you really are, and not trying to go down the road that everyone tells you should go down because they think that's the way that's the way to go. And then you're living your true purpose. You're living your passion. I mean, and you see it. And that's what I loved, seeing how it was cute to watch. I loved it. Um, so True Vibe is your podcast. How can people find you?
yes. And thank you so much for that, Ashley. I really appreciate you sharing those beautiful words. I feel like you channeled that into my soul. So thank you. And, even for anyone else listening, I felt like you just channeled that. Like we need that reminder to be proud of ourselves and for how far we've come. One of the things I've been leaning into, one of my top love languages, words of affirmation. So I've been leaning into fully receiving the words of affirmation because you could hear this and say, "Oh yeah, yeah, thank you so much," but it's like, wow, it's like you just took that bite of that food that you were craving. So like thank you for
Right.
like allowing me to receive that.
Cute.
So you can follow you can if you feel guys to connect with me, come follow me on Instagram at MaryMC4 and send me a message. I'm happy to hear what this podcast brought up for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So fun to meet you.
Thank you.